Hey everybody, it's Admiral Teague with a look at some Yellowstone 1923 characters. We're talking about Spencer and Alexandra, otherwise known as Alex. Our stars are Brendan Sklenar, who plays Spencer Dutton, the younger son of James and Margaret Dutton. Spencer has witnessed the horrors of World War I and travels Africa tracking big game. Many fans first saw Spencer as a child during flashbacks set in 1893 from 2 episodes of the 4th season of Yellowstone. Then there's Julia Schlapfer, who plays Alexandra. She's a free-thinking woman from the British upper class who encounters Spencer in Africa. Spencer and Alex's story unfolds there, isolated from the events in Montana, so it doesn't feature the show's marquee talent. That's not really a problem, though. These two young actors have real chemistry together and managed to set the screen on fire a couple of times. Here's how their story unfolded in Season 1. When we first see Spencer, he's a big game hunter for hire, taking out a rampaging lion. Then he's off to Nairobi, where he's hired to protect a safari camp. Spencer's sort of removed himself from society, working for tourist camps or the railroad, managing to make a living controlling the predatory animals and big cats that menace the tourists and the railroad workers. In a flashback, we see him on a battlefield of the Great War in Europe. He's in a desperate fight that ends with brutal hand-to-hand combat. He's been through a lot. His wartime experiences are a part of him, but seemingly he's doing okay, living on his own terms. The war can still haunt his dreams, but he's a very Hemingway sort of character, so it's hard to say how deeply these memories affect him. As we get to know Spencer, we find out he's picked up some local notoriety for his exploits. In episode 2, in Kenya, after killing a pair of leopards and losing a friend in that brutal encounter, Spencer meets a British woman named Alexandra, and the two become smitten with each other. She just leaves her fiancé Arthur, who we'll unfortunately see again, and joins Spencer as he heads off to his next assignment in the Serengeti, still on the mend from tangling with those wild leopards. In the events of episode 3, it changes everyone's destiny, including Spencer's. In that episode, Jacob and his nephews return to the ranch. Banner Creighton stumbles his way back home and gathers his sheep herders to plot revenge against the Duttons. Jacob goes to town and speaks to the sheriff about the herders while his family observes the modern trappings that the Yellowstone National Park is bringing the Bozeman. On their way back to the ranch the next day, they're ambushed by the herders. John is killed, and Jacob and Elizabeth are seriously wounded before the Duttons can fend off Creighton and his goons. When the dust settles, Banner and several of the others escape. As the doctor tends to Jacob, Kara writes a letter to Spencer, telling him of the attack and begging him to come home to defend the family's land. Meanwhile, in Africa, Spencer asks Alexandra to marry him, and also if he can call her Alex. They then destroy their car, escaping a mad elephant that attacks them on their side quest to see the footprints of early humans in volcanic rocks. Lucky to have survived, they're stranded in the middle of nowhere and barely escape a couple of more perilous situations before finding their way back to civilization. In episode 4, Spencer grows closer to his fiancée and receives Kara's letter that a range war is in progress. She tells Spencer that they really need him to return to Montana to help the family in its hour of need. He resolves to return home and make sure the Duttons win this range war. In episode 5, they reach Mombasa. Upon hearing that travel by ocean liner would take months, Spencer signs on as a deckhand on a local tugboat that will go through the Suez Canal, where he will arrange onward passage to America. While he tries to spare Alex the dangerous journey into a full-blown range war, she'll have none of it and refuses to be left behind. While on their way to the Suez Canal in a really questionable boat, their bad luck continues. First, the captain drops dead, and then their tugboat is struck by an abandoned cargo ship and capsizes. In episode 6, Spencer and Alex barely survive the tugboat capsizing in shark-infested waters, but thankfully they're eventually rescued by the SS Lambridge, which would take them to Marseille. Its captain agrees to marry them in international waters, offering his wife's ring for the ceremony. It's obvious these two are truly in love, and they were my favorite part of the story by this point. In episode 7, Spencer and Alex find themselves in Sicily, where they unexpectedly encounter Alex's former fiancée. It's a little awkward to say the least. In the final episode, Spencer and Alex board the SS Majestic bound for London. Alex's former fiancé, Arthur, traveling with his family and the party of aristocrats that Alex broke away from, challenges Spencer to a duel on the cruise ship's deck. In a well-conceived, well-filmed, and somewhat brutal fight that told us a little about all those involved while providing some really enjoyable action, combat veteran Spencer easily wins. However, Arthur pulls a pistol and charges at Spencer, who throws the unhinged idiot overboard in an act of self-defense. Seriously, Arthur so had this coming. He just would not move on. He was already rich as sin when we met him, with a connection to the royal family. When we run into him again, another chick is already digging on him. He's going to be too old for World War II. Seriously, this guy was set up for an easy life. All he had to do was stay down. What a loser! So anyway, although Spencer is not charged, Arthur's father, the Earl of Sussex, orders the captain to remove him from the vessel at the nearest port and confine Alex to her quarters. It's there that she learns her parents have arranged for her to return to London. She flees her cabin and makes it to the deck, only to see Spencer being taken away. But there's no way to join him. She's being restrained by a couple of sailors, so she can't leave the ship. They're able to shout to each other a little, though, agreeing to meet in Bozeman. Separated from each other with no way to communicate that seems practical or is likely to succeed in the world of 1923, it's not going to be easy for these two to reunite. All anyone knows is that Spencer is heading to Bozeman as fast as he can, and he's bringing hell with him. Their part of Season 1's story ends with Alex having the goal of intercepting her new husband Spencer or finding him in Bozeman, where all characters, stories, and destinies are on a collision course over the fate of the Yellowstone Ranch. Looking ahead to Season 2, my guess is somewhere on the line before they ultimately make it to Bozeman, Spencer and Alex will reunite somewhere. I don't know how, but it seems like they're going to arrive together. This show would not be complete without a showdown between all parties, including the extremely powerful Spencer Dutton. As far as I know, there's not supposed to be a third season of 1923, and with Brandon Sklenar angling to play Batman, who knows what could happen next. All we know for sure is we're likely set up for an amazing conclusion to this Taylor Sheridan story. Anyway, I'm your buddy Admiral Teague. Do me a favor, hit those like and follow buttons, and consider joining me Saturday nights at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time when we have the best Star Trek watch party on YouTube. You can also catch me live on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the evenings on the East Coast. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll see you out there.